I was 6 years old when my parents dropped me off at Grandpa Walter's ranch, like I was excess luggage they didn't want to carry into their new life. I still remember the excuse. It's just for the summer, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy need a break. They hugged me like it was a quick goodbye, but they never came back. No calls, no birthday cards, not even a text as the years passed. Grandpa never said anything bad about them, not once. He just wiped my tears, poured hot cocoa, and taught me how to saddle a horse before sunrise. I'd wait every weekend by the gate, my little suitcase packed, hoping this would be the one they'd return for me. But the only thing that came down that road was silence. By the time I was 13, I stopped asking. Grandpa became my world, strict, stubborn, full of stories about building the ranch from dirt and grit, but soft in the places I needed. He taught me numbers by making me track cattle feed inventory. He called me Ace when I solved my first tax form faster than his accountant. The man didn't just raise me, he built me, brick by emotional brick. The irony was that while my parents partied in Aspen and posted vacation pictures with my younger brother, the one they kept, I was helping Grandpa run a full ranch, balance books, and learn Latin from the back of his old Bible. They only called once when I was 17, not to ask about me, but to request Grandpa co-sign on a loan they were denied. I overheard the conversation from the hallway. Grandpa's voice turned into something I'd never heard before, cold and final. You left her. You don't get a penny. That was the end of it. I didn't speak to my parents again. They never even tried. Then Grandpa got sick. Slowly at first, forgetting his boots in the oven, writing checks to dead cattle buyers. I became the one feeding him soup, keeping track of his meds, tucking him in. The man who once roped a bull in one swing now needed help standing. But he never once said, "You owe me." He just held my hand and called me his girl. One night, when he thought I was asleep on the couch, I saw him sitting at the kitchen table, scribbling on his will, muttering to himself, "She's all I got. She's all I need." I never asked about the money. I didn't care. But apparently my parents did. Because on the day of the funeral, after years of silence, absence, and complete abandonment, they pulled up to the ranch in a rented black Escalade, stepped out in matching designer sunglasses, and greeted the grieving crowd with air kisses and fake tears. Then Mom leaned in, lips barely moving, and whispered, "So where's the will, darling?" We heard he left everything to the family. I looked at her, this woman who hadn't spoken to me since I was a child, and said just one word. "Funny." She blinked. "What's funny?" I smiled. "You thinking you're still part of it?" She blinked, confused, as if I had spoken another language. Dad was already moving through the house like he owned it again, hands behind his back, inspecting furniture he never lifted a finger to dust. My little brother, well, not so little now, stood awkwardly by the porch, wearing a suit too tight for his smug expression. "Is this where he kept his financials?" Dad asked, gesturing toward Grandpa's old study like he was asking for directions to the nearest ATM. I didn't answer. I was too busy watching my childhood evaporate under the weight of their entitlement. "You can't just keep us out of this," Mom hissed, adjusting her pearls. "We're his blood." "So was I said, voice even. "Difference is, I stayed." Her jaw tensed. "Don't get dramatic." But it wasn't drama. It was truth. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that lives between generations. Dust floated in beams of golden light. Grandpa's boots still sat by the door. His smell, old cedar and pipe tobacco, still lingered in the hall. And yet these people walked in like realtors, like buzzards circling a property they never earned. "I've already contacted a lawyer," Mom added. "We'll be contesting the will." Of course they would. "Good," I said calmly. "You'll need one." I went to the back room where Grandpa kept the safe, not under the floorboards or behind a painting, but right in plain sight. because he never hid anything from me. Inside were the documents they were after. The will notarized, his estate plan, bank transfers, and one letter addressed in shaky handwriting. To be opened in the event of my death, by Emily only. I didn't read it right away. I held it to my chest, breathed in the paper, the ink, the weight of what it might contain. Then I stepped back into the living room where they were now arguing over which pieces of art might be auction-worthy. I think that's original Navajo, Dad said, pointing to a rug Grandpa bartered for in Arizona. We could probably flip it. I laid the letter on the table, watched them freeze. What's that? Mom asked. His final word, I said, addressed to me, not you. She scoffed. That can't override. It can, I said, and it does. Then I walked outside before they could say another word, down the back porch steps to the stables, where the only creatures who'd ever been loyal to me were still waiting. I leaned against the fence and let the wind dry my face. Because grief, when it's tangled with betrayal, doesn't come as tears. It comes as steel. And somewhere in the distance, I swear I heard Grandpa whisper, "Don't let them take what they never gave." The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I took it upstairs, away from their voices, away from their footsteps tapping across Grandpa's hardwood floors like vultures dancing before a feast. I sat on the window bench in the room that used to be mine, knees curled up, and opened it. Inside was a folded letter in his familiar uneven script, the kind that got shakier the closer we came to the end. Ace, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I won't waste time saying I love you. I showed you that every day. What I will say is this: I never forgot what they did, but I knew if I made it about revenge, you'd inherit bitterness, not land. So I made sure justice looked like kindness. On paper. My throat tightened. I left you everything. Not just the land, the house, or the money. I left you my name and the legacy behind it. They will come for it. I know them. But I also know you. What they don't know is that I changed the will twice. I blinked. Once to make you my sole heir. And again, to add the clause they'll never see coming. The letter was paper thin, but the next word struck like a mountain. If they challenge the will, they forfeit everything. I gasped. Everything, every trust in their names, every investment I protected for them out of obligation. The moment they try to take your name off the deed, they take their names off every account. A chill went through me. Let them fight. Let them scream. Then let them walk away with nothing but shame. Love you always, Grandpa. I sat there in stunned silence. He'd planned this. He knew them. And he knew they'd come back the second there was something to take. I walked back downstairs slowly, the letter folded in my palm like a sword. Mom and Dad were now talking to my brother about putting the house on the market ASAP, as if it was already theirs. They didn't even hear me enter. Not until I placed the letter on the kitchen table next to the official notarized copy of the will and said calmly, "You challenge it? You lose everything. That's Grandpa's last word. You can read it or you can leave. But there is no in-between." They froze. Mom reached for the letter. "Emily, be reasonable." "No," I said, staring her dead in the eyes. "I was reasonable when you left me here like I was nothing. Grandpa was the only one who thought I was something. And now I know, and so did the law." Dad's face twisted. "This is blackmail. This is clarity. Challenge the will. Lose your share, your stocks, your comforts. The choice is yours." They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Because for the first time in their lives, they realized I wasn't the girl they left behind. I was the woman they'd never be able to outrun. My brother was the first to speak. "You're bluffing," he scoffed. "Grandpa wouldn't cut us off completely. He might have been angry, but he wasn't cruel." I looked at him with a kind of cold pity. He wasn't cruel. He was precise. "You're being emotional," Mom said, her voice trying to regain that fake control she always wore around outsiders. "This isn't what he wanted. You've twisted it." "No, Mom," I interrupted. "You twisted it the day you dropped your daughter off like luggage. I didn't ask for this, but I earned it." Dad stepped closer, puffed up like he used to when I was little and scared of his shadow. "You think a judge will side with you? You're just a girl who lived here. We're his children." I didn't flinch. "And yet you couldn't name the last medication he took, the ranch hand who died last winter, or the fact that his favorite chair had a loose leg for 6 years and no one fixed it but me. But yes, please, tell me more about what family means to you." My voice had never been this steady. It scared even me. My parents didn't leave right away. They lingered, whispered, made a few calls. My brother pulled me aside once and tried to talk calmly, like we were on the same team. "We could split it, you know," he offered. "Mom and Dad won't be around forever. This is bigger than some grudge." I stared at him. "This isn't a grudge, it's a grave." "What?" "This is the last thing Grandpa ever asked of me. You want me to spit on that so you can buy a second house in Miami?" He didn't reply, just clenched his jaw and walked off. The next morning, their lawyer arrived, polished, cold, asked for coffee like it was a brunch meeting and not a legal ambush. He made small talk, then slid a folder across the table. "Your parents wish to mediate before any formal challenge." I nodded. "Sure, I'll mediate." I opened the letter in front of him, read the clause aloud. "If any party challenges the will in court or through legal mediation, all accounts held in their name or held in trust by Walter E. Greaves shall be immediately dissolved, and the assets liquidated and donated to the Wounded Ranchers Foundation." The lawyer blinked. "That's binding?" "Very. And notarized?" I handed him the stamped copy. 3 months before his death, witnessed, filed. He cleared his throat. "I see." And just like that, the room shifted. The power my parents thought they had crumbled like the paint in Grandpa's old study. They weren't heirs anymore. They were trespassers in a kingdom they left behind. The next few days were quiet, too quiet. My parents didn't come back, but their absence felt more like strategy than surrender. I started locking the ranch office, moved Grandpa's documents to a safety deposit box in town, and asked a friend of his, Mr. Ketchum, a retired judge, to double-check everything. He confirmed what I already knew. Grandpa's will was legally airtight. His clause about forfeiture, unconventional, but completely enforceable. But something didn't sit right. On the 4th day, my brother called. "I'm done," he said, voice tired. "They're losing it. Dad's threatening to sue everyone and Mom's, well, she's already calling news stations." "News?" I repeated. "Yeah," he sighed. "She's pitching it as a daughter manipulating her dying grandfather for money." I stood frozen. "You're kidding." "I wish," he muttered. "I told them to stop. Emily, I'm sorry." I hung up without another word. By morning, there it was. Heiress accused of exploiting elderly ranch owner for $100 million inheritance, splashed across the screen, my childhood photo from a church picnic dragged out like a mugshot. I stared at it in disbelief. The media had a field day. They twisted everything, made Grandpa look senile, made me look like a schemer. The same reporters who once ignored our quiet ranch were now camped outside our gate, cameras ready to catch the spoiled ranch girl who took everything. The betrayal wasn't even the headlines. It was what came next. My brother released a statement, a joint statement with them. "We love Emily, but we believe our father was manipulated in his final days. We only want What's fair? My heart dropped. I'd believed him. I'd actually believed he was different. That maybe, just maybe, one of them had grown a conscience. But no, he folded. They dangled the money, and he folded like paper in rain. I walked out to the barn, slamming the door behind me, sobbing, not because I was scared, but because I felt so stupid. Grandpa warned me they'd come. He'd prepared me for war, but not for loneliness. The only thing that stopped me from breaking completely was a folder I hadn't opened yet. One Grandpa had labeled simply, "Name Transfer Authorization." I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were legal documents transferring ownership, not just of the land, the house, or the business, but the family name itself. Greaves Ranch, under legal restructuring, would no longer be named after Walter E. Greaves. It would be renamed Emily Walter Holdings. I gasped. He hadn't just left me the money. He gave me the family's name. He erased them and built a new legacy in mine. I held the paper close, the one thing still warm in my hands, and I made a silent vow to the man who raised me. They wanted the fortune. I'll protect the name, even if it means losing the last piece of family I had left. The papers trembled in my hands as I stared at my new name etched in bold legal print, Emily Walter Holdings. My chest tightened. It wasn't just inheritance anymore. It was identity, legacy. The name they tossed away like scraps was now etched on every acre, every asset, every deed Grandpa had spent his life building. And my brother had joined the enemy. I sat alone in the barn office, lights off, listening to the wind rattle the sideboards. I could still hear Grandpa's voice, just faint enough to haunt me. People show you who they are when money's on the table. He was right, always had been. The people who left me in the dust were now clawing through it, for a slice of gold they never earned. I opened my laptop and typed a letter to the press. Not a defensive piece, not an angry tirade, a truth bomb. My name is Emily Greaves, soon to be Emily Walter, and I was abandoned by my parents at age 6. I cared for my grandfather until his dying breath. I fed him, cleaned him, protected him. I never asked for a dime. He chose to leave me everything, not out of pity, but out of principle. And if you think that makes me a villain, you're welcome to ask the hospital staff who watched me sleep in the chair by his bed for 6 months. I attached photos, receipts, hospital records, emails between Grandpa's lawyer and me from the past 2 years. But I didn't stop there. I uploaded a video Grandpa had recorded months before his passing, a legal testimony recorded in front of his attorney and 2 witnesses. In the footage, Grandpa sat tall in his leather chair, oxygen tube barely noticeable as he looked into the camera. "This isn't a will of revenge. It's a will of justice," he said. "My daughter and her husband abandoned my granddaughter. She's been my caregiver, my partner, my pride. Everything I built, I leave to her because she built me back when I was falling apart." I hit send, not just to the press, but to the law firm, the reporters, and every news outlet that had smeared my name without fact-checking a thing. The clip went viral in hours. By the next morning, the headlines had flipped. "Granddaughter vindicated in $100 million ranch inheritance. Emotional video confirms her rights." But just as I caught my breath, I got a knock on the door. It was Sheriff Lane, an old friend of Grandpa's. "Emily," he said quietly, hat in his hands, "I think you need to see something. It's about Walter, about something he never told you." My blood ran cold. "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated. "The land. It might not be just a ranch anymore. There's something under it, something people would kill for." I stared at Sheriff Lane, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. His boots echoed on the wooden floor as he entered. eyes scanning the house like he expected something to jump out from the shadows. He took a deep breath. You ever wonder why your grandfather never sold off parts of the land, even when taxes went up or crops failed? I shook my head slowly. He said it wasn't about money. Said the land was soul deep. The sheriff nodded. That's true. But there's more. He pulled a folder from under his coat and laid it on the kitchen table. The seal was already broken. Inside were copies of old geological surveys, dated decades back, and an old black and white photo showing men drilling a test shaft somewhere near the western ridge of the property. Back in the 60s, before environmental laws tightened, there was a mining company that suspected there was rare earth metal beneath that ridge, Sheriff Lane explained. Uranium, maybe? Even traces of something called coltan, used in electronics now. They ran preliminary scans. But then Walter bought the land. Wait, I said. I thought Grandpa inherited the ranch from his father. He did, but that specific ridge, he bought it separately, paid cash, kept it quiet, never told anyone. I stood still, blood rushing through my ears. He bought land with uranium on it and didn't say a word? He didn't trust the government, the sheriff said. And after he saw what the mining companies did to other small towns, he vowed no one would ever touch his soil, not for a price, not for power. I sat down, overwhelmed. So what does this mean for me? Lane's eyes darkened. It means your family may not be the only ones who come sniffing around. If word gets out that you own one of the last untapped mineral-rich ridges in this region, people will want it, and they won't ask nicely. I leaned back, trying to breathe. I had just fought tooth and nail to keep the ranch, and now it felt like I was sitting on a gold mine with a ticking clock. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Block number, I answered cautiously. A distorted voice spoke. Sell the ridge. Name your price. Or watch it burn. Click. My breath caught in my throat. The sheriff looked at me. I was afraid of this. He handed me a second envelope. Smaller, sealed with Grandpa's old wax stamp. I hadn't seen it before. I found this in Walter's gun safe, he said. It had your name on it. Hands trembling, I broke the seal. Inside was a single piece of paper. If they ever come, don't run, don't sell. Go to the tree where I carved your name. The rest of the truth is buried there. My hands began to shake. Sheriff Lane didn't say a word. Outside, wind howled through the ridge like it was calling something home. And for the first time since Grandpa's death, I felt something colder than grief. Danger. I held the note in my hand for what felt like an hour, staring at the words Grandpa had written. Not typed, not dictated. Written. That alone told me this was real. Serious. Maybe even dangerous. He hadn't trusted email. He hadn't even trusted the safe. He trusted a tree, a memory, and me. I knew exactly the one he meant, the old cottonwood behind the east stable, where he'd carved my name when I was 6 and too sad to speak. I had been crying after my parents left, sitting under that tree like I was waiting for the ground to open and swallow me whole. Grandpa sat next to me, took out his pocket knife and said, "If they won't remember you, this tree will." He carved it in slow, thick letters, EMILY. I cried harder. And he stayed there all night. The wind outside picked up, dust coiling across the fields. Sheriff Lane stood, his fingers twitching toward his radio. "I don't like that call," he said. "You sure you want to do this alone?" "I have to," I replied. "This is between me and him." "Call me the second something feels off." "I will." But I didn't plan to call. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was walking into. I grabbed a flashlight, gloves, and Grandpa's old toolbox. The walk to the cottonwood was long, longer than I remembered. The ridge glowed orange in the dying sun, casting shadows that felt like figures watching from the edge of the hills. The cottonwood was still there, but someone had been there recently. The earth around the base had been disturbed. Shovel marks. Fresh. I dropped to my knees and dug, heart pounding, hands trembling. The soil was dry and stubborn. It clung to my nails like it didn't want to let go. Inch by inch, I cleared it. And then my hand hit wood. I dug faster. It was a box, an old ammunition crate, sealed with a rusted padlock. I pried it open with a crowbar from Grandpa's kit. Inside 3 items, a flash drive, a yellow journal, and a pistol. My breath hitched. The journal was Grandpa's. His entries dated back 30 years. I flipped through pages filled with strange phrases. They offered $3 million. I said no. Feds came again, told him the mine collapsed decades ago. Emily must never find out what's under the East Ridge, unless they come for it. I stopped breathing for a moment. There was something buried, something big. The flash drive, labeled for Emily only, weighed like a brick in my hand. I didn't open it yet, because something else caught my attention. A second voice, real, not in my head. Footsteps, crackling leaves. And then, from behind the tree, "You weren't supposed to find that." I turned, slowly, flashlight beam shaking. It was my brother. I held the flashlight like a weapon, the beam trembling across my brother's face. He looked rough, not just tired, but angry, desperate. His clothes were dusty, like he'd already been digging. His eyes flicked down to the box beside me, then back up. "So, it was here," he muttered, stepping forward. I knew it. "How did you know I'd come here?" "Because I know him," he snapped. "Better than you think." I tightened my grip on the flashlight. "You were never here. Not when he was sick. Not when he couldn't breathe. Not when he cried out at night and thought I was his daughter. You think you know him?" He didn't flinch. "He told me things, Emily, things he never wrote down. Things even you don't know." "Like what?" I whispered. "Like why he really bought this ridge. What he found underneath it. Why he was hiding it from everyone." I swallowed. "Tell me." He crouched, but didn't reach for the box. Just looked at the journal like it might bite. "There's a vein of rare earth metals here. Yeah, but there's more. Years ago, the military came sniffing. Grandpa told them no. But not because he hated the government. Because he saw what they did when they wanted something. They offered to buy the land. He refused. The next week, 2 ranches in the next county mysteriously burned down." My stomach twisted. "You're lying." "Am I?" he said. "Then why'd he start storing weapons? Why'd he build a panic room under the barn?" I stared at him. "He told me if anything ever happened to him, if anyone came asking about the ridge, I was supposed to burn it all." My voice cracked. "You didn't even show up at his bedside." "Because I was afraid." His voice was sharp now. "I got 1 call from him the month before he died. Said they were watching him again. Said if I didn't keep quiet, we'd all end up buried with the ridge." I took a step back. "I don't believe you." He stood up straight. "Then ask yourself why they're calling you now. Why you're getting threats? You think this is about inheritance? It never was. It's about what Grandpa refused to give up." I looked down at the pistol in the box. He noticed. "I don't want to hurt you, Em. I want us to be on the same side. You still don't see it, do you?" "See what?" He stepped closer. "You weren't the only one he raised. He gave me something too. Just not money. He gave me instructions. And if you open that flash drive, you're going to need more than a lawyer." I backed away, cradling the box in my arms. "I'm not burning anything," I said. "Not yet." He sighed, turned his back, and began walking toward the tree line. But just before he disappeared into the darkness, he said one last thing. "Then you better not sleep tonight." The air felt colder than before. I returned to the house, sealed the box in the panic room beneath the barn, and watched from the window all night, hand on the gun Grandpa had left. And when the sun rose the next morning, my inbox held a single email. Subject: "You have 72 hours. Coordinates attached. Bring the drive. Come alone." And beneath it, a single sentence. "Your grandfather stole from us, and now you pay the price." The wind howled louder now, as if the ridge itself was warning me. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I sat in Grandpa's old recliner, the pistol in my lap, the flash drive clutched in one hand. Every creak in the house made me flinch. Every shadow outside looked like it might be him. Or worse, someone else. My brother's words echoed in my head. "You weren't supposed to find that. Then you better not sleep tonight." But it wasn't just fear that kept me awake. It was rage. They abandoned me, left me with a dying man, with unanswered questions and broken promises. And now they all wanted something from me. A slice of whatever they thought he'd hidden. But I wasn't the scared, silent girl they dumped on Grandpa's porch anymore. I was the last Walter standing. At 3:47 a.m., I made a decision. No more waiting, no more hiding. I went to the barn. The panic room was exactly as Grandpa left it. Reinforced steel door, concrete floors, a cot, survival gear, backup generators, a safe bolted into the ground. But the moment I opened the box again, the flash drive seemed to burn in my palm. I slid it into Grandpa's old laptop. It took a few seconds to load. And then his face appeared on screen. A video file. "If you're watching this, Emily, then you found it." His voice hit me like a wave. Calm. Steady. The same voice that once read me bedtime stories and taught me how to fix a fence. "There are things I never told you. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't want you to carry the weight." He paused, coughed hard, wiped his mouth with a handkerchief. The East Ridge contains more than minerals. Back in '74, I discovered a sealed shaft from the war era. It was government-labeled, hazardous. I reported it anonymously. 2 weeks later, I got a visit. Men in black suits. One said he worked for a department that didn't exist. They told me if I sold the ridge, it would disappear. And so would I. I said no. I always said no. His eyes grew wet. "But now they'll come for you. I'm sorry, baby girl, I tried to protect you by cutting you out of it. But you were always smarter than me." I paused the video, heart hammering. What was in that shaft? Why would my life be in danger over something the government wanted buried? I scrolled through the flash drive. Another file, a folder labeled Coordinates East Ridge Bunker. Inside were maps, security blueprints, a personal memo from someone named Agent L. Sloan, dated July 1980. The memo read, "Subject refused cooperation. Asset remains intact. Authorization for silent extraction if required." Extraction? My blood ran cold. The laptop buzzed, then crashed. Screen to black. Seconds later, the barn lights flickered. A power surge. The backup generator kicked in, but too late. I heard movement outside. Not footsteps, tires. Headlights crept over the ridge. Not one car, not two. 3 black SUVs, and they weren't slowing down. I grabbed the gun, stuffed the flash drive back into the box, locked the panic room, and ran for the woods behind the barn. As I sprinted through the trees, heart in my throat, I heard it. "She's on foot. Don't let her reach the tree line." They were here, and they weren't just after land. They were after me. Branches tore at my arms as I sprinted into the trees, lungs burning. Behind me, voices barked commands. Beams of flashlights slashed through the dark. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. I knew this land better than anyone alive. Every slope, every hollow, every fallen log Grandpa and I used to call fox traps. I hit the creek bed just before the ridge and slid down the embankment, ducking low into the shadow of a rotting tree stump. My breath came in gasps, the cold air sharp in my chest. "Fan out! She's headed for the ridge," one voice shouted, closer than I wanted it to be. They weren't amateurs, their movements were coordinated, too coordinated for random thieves. My brother's warning snapped into focus. These weren't just angry relatives. They were sent, and they weren't afraid to use force. I waited until their footsteps passed, then doubled back, crawling on my hands and knees toward the old survey path. Grandpa had carved a narrow trail that led straight to the East Ridge, one only we knew about. He'd once joked it was our secret treasure map. I never thought it'd be the route I'd take to save my own life. When I reached the base of the ridge, dawn had begun to bleed into the sky. A thin light revealed the rusted metal plate embedded in the hillside, partially hidden under fallen leaves and brush. The coordinates matched. This was it. I dug quickly, heart hammering, until my fingers scraped against cold steel. A keypad, 4 digits. I didn't hesitate. I typed Grandpa's birthday. The lock clicked. I pulled the hatch open and slipped inside just as tires screeched nearby. One SUV had reached the creek bed. The door shut silently above me. Darkness swallowed me whole, until low blue lights flickered on along the floor. It wasn't just a bunker. It was a vault. The walls were lined with shelves, documents, maps, sealed boxes marked "Federal Use Only." At the far end was a terminal, ancient but still operational, humming softly, like it had never stopped waiting. I approached, hands shaking, and tapped the only key not covered in dust. The screen lit up. A prompt blinked. "Welcome, Walter R. Langston. Voice authentication required." I froze, then whispered, "Walter Langston. Continue." The terminal processed, then unlocked with a slow, whirring sound. A deep compartment opened beneath it, revealing a steel case the size of a shoebox. Inside, vials, small, labeled with codes I didn't recognize. Alongside them, a tape recorder. I pressed play. If you're hearing this, it means they've come again. Emily, this is what they were after. Not the minerals, not the ridge, but this. In 72, the government tested a synthetic mineral compound here. The experiment failed, or so they said. But the land changed. Plants grew strange. Deer were born with fused limbs. I buried the vials. They came back years later, wanting it all sealed or extracted quietly. I said no. I watched this land grow sick. I wasn't going to let them do it again. They offered money, threatened your father. That's why he left. He sold out. I sent you here to break the cycle. I sat back, dizzy. This wasn't just about minerals or property. It was about contamination, legacy, the kind of secret governments disown. My phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. "We know you're in the ridge. This is your only chance to walk away. Bring the box." Or, "We come in." I stared at the message, then at the case in my lap. I had $100 million worth of poisoned legacy in my hands, and a decision to make. I stared at the case for a long time, weighing everything. The vials, the recordings, the warnings. This wasn't just an inheritance anymore. It was evidence of what exactly I didn't fully know, but enough to make powerful people nervous, enough to make them chase me through the woods in the dark. A noise from above made me freeze. Boots. They were on top of the hatch. "Thermal shows she's inside. Bunker entrance is confirmed." Panic surged through me. And then something else. Defiance. I tucked the case into my backpack, wiped the terminal clean with my sleeve, and used Grandpa's old bolt cutter to snap the fuse on the interior generator. The bunker went dark. Then I slipped into the emergency escape tunnel behind the shelving. A tunnel even my brother didn't know existed. Grandpa's paranoia turned out to be my salvation. As I crawled through the dirt-lined shaft, the text message replayed in my mind. This is your only chance to walk away. But they didn't mean walk away with justice. They meant silence. They meant obedience. As I emerged behind a thicket farther down the ridge, I saw the black SUVs circling the bunker like wolves. Men in plain clothes barked into radios. I crouched low, heart hammering. They didn't see me, but someone else did. Across the ridge, standing at the edge of the clearing, was my mother, and she was holding her own phone, aimed straight at the bunker, smiling. My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I thought I was seeing things. My mother, out here, dressed in beige heels and a tailored coat that didn't belong anywhere near a mountain ridge. She looked composed, like this wasn't a hostile land grab, like it was just another board meeting. She tucked her phone away and turned toward the agents. She's inside. She has it. Do what you need to. The lead man nodded. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. My own mother had brought them, not just supported them, led them. All this time I thought she stayed out of the inheritance drama, but she had been orchestrating it. And now, I knew why she never came back for me. Never visited Grandpa, never called on holidays. Because she was already in bed with the enemy. I backed away slowly from the clearing, but my foot snapped a twig. The noise was barely audible, but one of the agents turned. There! I bolted. The woods blurred past me. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would break through my ribs. My mother's voice called behind me. Calm, commanding. Don't shoot. We need her alive. I didn't stop running until I reached the old ranger station on the far edge of the property. A place abandoned for years, but still stocked with supplies. Grandpa had left a backup radio there. I locked the door behind me, threw a metal bar across it, and dropped to the floor. I had no plan, no allies, no proof, yet. But I had one thing they didn't: time. I powered on the radio and tuned to the emergency broadcast channel. Static filled the air. Then a faint voice. This is Channel 9. What's your emergency? I leaned in. My name is Emily Langston. I have federal evidence from a sealed experimental site. I am being hunted by armed contractors. I need immediate help and legal protection. A pause. Repeat, you said evidence from an experimental site? Yes, I have it. I have video files, coordinates, files. The voice changed. Stay on this channel. Do not move from your location. Help is en route. I exhaled, then nearly choked back tears. For the first time in days, someone believed me. But relief lasted all of 5 minutes, because outside the ranger station, tires screeched again. And my brother's voice rang out, Emily, I told you we should have been on the same side. Then came my mother's. You always were so dramatic. If you just handed it over, this could have ended quietly. I clutched the flash drive to my chest and whispered, Not this time. I slid backward into the shadows of the ranger station, every creak in the wooden floor sounding like a scream. My hand trembled as I reached into my pocket and pulled out the last card I hadn't played. The satellite phone Grandpa kept hidden beneath the floorboards. I dialed the encrypted number Sheriff Lane had given me, a contact for emergencies only. I hadn't known until now what kind of emergencies he meant. A click. Langston? Came the gruff voice. Talk to me. They're here, I whispered. My family brought them. They're outside now. Did you secure the evidence? Yes, but I won't make it if I stay put. He hesitated. Then, we've been waiting for this. Sending extraction. 10 minutes. Hold the line. A crash hit the door like a battering ram. I jolted, dragging a chair against it, heart pounding so loud it muffled the world. My brother's voice grew closer, thick with something between rage and desperation. You don't know what you're doing, Em. That land, it belongs to all of us. I yelled back. Grandpa gave me more than land. He gave me the truth. That scares you more than a will ever could. We trusted Mom. You think she'd risk everything if this wasn't important? I laughed bitterly. She already did. She risked me. Another slam. I backed into the corner, holding the case like a shield. And then faintly, I heard it. Helicopter blades. Inbound. And for the first time, it wasn't theirs. The sound of the chopper grew louder, thundering through the trees like the drums of war. Its spotlight cut across the clearing, sending the men outside scattering for cover. I crawled to the boarded window and peeked through the cracks. Not black, white. A government insignia marked the side of the helicopter, followed by Department of Environmental Security and Containment. A second chopper hovered in the distance. News crew. Sheriff Lane hadn't just called for backup. He called the whole damn world. A voice boomed from a megaphone, amplified over the rotors. Emily Langston, this is Agent Klein with DES. We are here to escort you to safety. Do not open the door to anyone else. My brother cursed loud enough for me to hear. What did you do? My mother, ever poised, stepped into the beam of the spotlight, hands raised, performative, rehearsed. She called out calmly, My daughter is inside. She's confused, emotional. She has no idea what she's holding. I opened the door slowly, still clutching the steel case. I know exactly what I'm holding, I shouted back. And I know who tried to sell it. The agent nodded. We've been monitoring this for months. You're not the only one your grandfather trusted, Emily. He reached out before he passed. He knew this might happen. My knees buckled. All this time, I thought I'd been alone. I was wrong. 2 agents came forward, shielding me as I stepped out, flash drive and vials in hand. My brother lunged, but was tackled to the ground instantly. My mother didn't move. Her eyes met mine, cold, unreadable. Agent Klein turned to her. Mrs. Langston, we have reason to believe you entered a sealed federal site without clearance. You're coming with us. She didn't flinch. You think I did this for greed? You think I wanted the money? He raised an eyebrow. She stepped forward slowly. It wasn't about the inheritance. It was about what your father started. He made promises. I had to honor them. I blinked. You knew about the contamination? I was part of the original cover-up, she said flatly. They paid us to keep quiet. But when your grandfather refused to sell, he became a liability. When he took you in, he became unpredictable. My breath caught. You tried to silence your own father? She looked at me, almost sadly. I tried to protect what was left of our name. The agents cuffed her, but even then she didn't resist. As she was led into the SUV, she turned over her shoulder and said one last thing. You should have just taken the house, Emily. That's all you were ever meant to have. But I didn't look back, because as the helicopter lifted me from the ridge, I saw the land for what it was. Broken, dangerous, buried in secrets. And I saw myself for what I had become, the only one brave enough to face them. As the SUV with my mother disappeared into the tree line, part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. But mostly, I just felt hollow, like something had been ripped from me that I never got to understand in time. Agent Klein leaned in. You did the right thing. But you should know, the vials weren't the only thing your grandfather secured. I frowned. What do you mean? He handed me a sealed envelope from his coat pocket. He left this with us months ago. Said it was only to be opened if you proved yourself. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single sentence, written in Grandpa's sharp, no-nonsense scrawl. The land never mattered, but the name does. Use it. Fix it. Beneath the note, a key. And a bank account number. Agent Klein's voice was quieter now. The last deposit from that account was Considerable. He left it to a foundation under your name. One that doesn't exist yet. I stared at the key. Something told me the real battle had only just begun. The safe house was nestled in the foothills an hour from the ridge. Plain exterior, bulletproof windows, soundproof walls. Inside, it smelled like antiseptic and freshly brewed coffee. The agents gave me a room, food, a phone I wasn't allowed to use freely. And privacy, the kind that felt more like surveillance. I sat on the edge of the cot, the envelope and key still clutched in my hands. I had been holding on to secrets for days. Now, they were holding on to me. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Agent Klein again, holding a flash drive in a sealed bag. Recovered from the Ridge Vault. It's from Walter Langston, he said. We haven't watched it. He addressed it to you. My hands shook as I inserted it into the tablet they provided. The screen flickered. Then Grandpa appeared. Older, grayer than I remembered him even at the end. But his voice was strong, steady. Emily, if you're watching this, then the vultures circled as I feared. And you did what I always hoped. You chose truth, not silence. He leaned forward, eyes piercing the lens. The vials aren't the end, they're the beginning. A cover-up that spanned decades. What they tested on this land altered the soil, the animals, even us. But they buried it, erased records. And I wasn't supposed to know. But I did. He held up a newspaper clipping. A boy in the 80s, malformed spine, born near the testing site. The Langston name was tied to this land because your great-grandfather sold them access in the first place. It was our signature that opened the door. I gasped. He continued. I spent the last 10 years collecting records, photos, interviews. You'll find them in the safe deposit box this key opens. First County Bank, Anchorage. You'll also find incorporation papers for the Langston Redemption Fund. He smiled faintly. It's yours. $60 million. Use it to help the families affected. Use it to buy the silence of no one. Use it to burn every lie they ever told us. I covered my mouth with my hand, eyes flooding. And if your parents show up at my funeral, don't let them bury you with me. You were always more than their discard. You were my legacy. The screen went dark, but inside me, something lit up. Not rage, purpose. I stood, blood rushing like wildfire through my veins. I wasn't just going to inherit Grandpa's war, I was going to win it. The funeral was held on the Langston estate, the one my brother claimed as his prize. Columns, roses, a fountain that hadn't run in years, but now flowed like they'd spent a fortune to make the place look polished for cameras. Not for Grandpa, for appearances. I arrived late, dressed in black, simple, silent, but no longer small. Every seat was filled. Politicians, lawyers, board members from the Langston Holdings. My parents sat in the front row, somber-faced but alert. My brother stood by the casket, hand on the edge like he was claiming ownership. He paused when he saw me. So did the whispers. I walked down the aisle slowly, a briefcase in one hand, a tablet in the other. I didn't look at anyone, not until I reached the podium Grandpa's attorney had been standing behind. Ms. Langston, he said, startled. We already started? I'm aware, I interrupted, but the real will hasn't. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My father stood. What are you doing? I didn't answer him. Instead, I placed the flash drive into the courtroom grade monitor beside the podium. The screen flickered, and Grandpa's face filled it again. If you're watching this, then they tried to bury more than my body. But Emily, if she's standing there, found the truth. The rest of the footage played. The experiments, the land corruption, the betrayal, the fund. The room went still. When it ended, I turned to the crowd. My name is Emily Langston. I was left behind, silenced and erased. But my grandfather didn't just leave me land, he left me proof and a purpose. I opened the briefcase. Documents spilled out, originals, stamped, witnessed. Effective immediately, the Langston Redemption Fund will begin allocating reparations to over 120 families affected by environmental poisoning, connected to our land and contracts. My grandfather's money, and mine, will clean the blood they pretended wasn't there. My brother lunged. "You can't do this. That's not how this works." "Oh, but it is," I said, holding up the signed amendment. "Your claim to the estate was nullified the moment you tampered with federal evidence. Congratulations. You and Mom are both disqualified." My mother paled. "Emily, think about what you're doing." "I did," I said, voice steady. "While you were busy selling your soul, I was saving the name you dirtied." Cameras flashed. Journalists took notes. Board members stood up and clapped. I didn't stay to hear their praise. I walked out into the sunlight, the wind tugging at my hair like Grandpa used to on the porch when I was little. The estate wasn't mine, but the truth was, and that was worth far more.